Here's the thing. There's the whole nostalgia thing, but there's also, I think, a deeper element that I would almost want to write as my own little Catholic hermeneutic of making sense of this universe. It works in my mind, and this is what I'm going to share with you.
Okay.
It is me imagining, in some ways, myself as Diogenes searching for the good man, searching for the man of virtue. And I think in many ways, as much as Star Trek is a secular show of, in some ways, a secular future, I don't think that actually is fully there. I don't think a full secularized future is possible, and I don't actually think in universe that's a thing. And I'll cite a couple examples, but I think most of the Star Trek shows actually try to sort of mimic that and try to find the man of virtue or the person of virtue that we can all try to love and aspire to. I think in the original series, it is Kirk being the cowboy pioneer in the wild, wild west of space, but also trying to make the right action at the right time.
Well, he was absolutely written to be a space cowboy. Like, and instead of, essentially he's the Lone Ranger in space. So he comes riding in on his horse, the Enterprise. He, does whatever he does. He gets the girl, Green or whatever she happens to be.
Yeah.
And then having done the right thing to the best of his ability, he rides off for the next adventure the next week.
Exactly.
And so what you had there was you had that story, and it was very simple, and in a lot of ways they didn't really develop it as far as they could because you only had 3 seasons, and it was kind of constantly on the brink of cancellation.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of season 3 of Star Trek was terrible because they were running with no budget, and they're
no budget.
Spock's brain is awful. Awful episode of Star Trek.
Yeah, actually, sort of it. Well, yeah, it is.
We have been following the ion trail of the spaceship that has Spock's brain.
What would they want with Mr. Spock's brain? What use is it?
Time left to us to find Spock's brain. 8 hours and 29 minutes. What have you done with Spock's brain? What have you done with Spock's brain? What have you done?
Having had the benefit of later series, most of the time it was season 3 when they really kind of found their footing and turned it into something that you wanted to go back to, because I also have been watching Star Trek The Next Generation in some of my off time. And I'm watching my way through season 1 of Star Trek right now. And it's like walking through mud a little bit.
Yeah.
But what they really changed, what they really brought to light, Gene Roddenberry had this utopian vision of a future where humanity, by our own strength, had brought peace to the world, had eliminated corruption, had eliminated capitalism.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't need money anymore. Everybody just did what they were supposed to do because it was the right thing to do. Nobody's ever written about that before. And then we were going out to bring those same values to everybody else who are below us. It was very much this humanist future. But I would agree with you because the Next Generation kind of peaked with that. But then after Roddenberry passed away partway through the run of Next Generation, when others took over,
there's a change. There's a visible change.
There's a real change. There are things he never would have let happen in that show that happened later on. I'm sure you agree.
Tell me what.
Well, there's sort of the
exactly what
an alien species that comes in originally trying to be sort of this big villain, but turns into more comic relief. The Ferengi, who are super capitalistic, and they sort of bring back in part the issue of money, where for the whole premise being that, well, we don't need money, and this kind of venture capitalism. Then there's this closer working with the Klingon Empire, another big baddie in the original series that has now actually had sort of a warming period from this Cold War, and they can respect each other. These sort of humans, these evolved humans, and these passionate, honor-bound Klingons.
Deeply spiritual, too.
Deeply spiritual, too. And the same thing with Romulans. Big baddies, but you sort of start growing maybe some kind of, well, there might be more to them than just sort of this portrayal that they're just the villain. They're just the fascist villain for Star Trek. There is warming of tensions between this divided sort of species of Vulcans, the very logical Vulcans, and the very emotive Romulans. And there is desire for reconciliation. It starts with this almost simplistic utopian vision, but I think it actually humbles itself by the end. And I think one of the key players in this is actually the interplay between Picard and Q. I would argue that Q, in some ways, is actually the angel of modesty and humility that the Federation needs to be able to actually overcome its hubris and thinking that they are evolved. That, by our strength alone, we can take on the Borg. No, you can't. Clearly you can't.
The Jean-Luc Picard you wanted to be, the one who did not fight the Nausicaan, had quite a different career from the one you remember. That Picard never had a brush with death, never came face to face with his own mortality.
So Q,
Clearly, you can't.
Q, who you have no idea who this is more than just a letter.
Yeah, I'm like, I'm cool name Q. You should have got more letters on it, but it's okay. Makes
So
copying it down
Q
easy.
is this sort of essentially an omnipotent being that kind of flashes in and flashes out of various episodes because he is this omnipotent being. And he's played by an exceptional actor named John Delancey, who there's not a lot of actors who appear on Star Trek who you admire for their acting ability. Patrick Stewart is certainly one of them. William Shatner doesn't get as much credit as he deserves, largely because his delivery is a little bit choppy.
Just a little bit choppy.
But he does do well in certain spots and in certain moments. We often pick on him. Brent Spiner.
But you still like watch it and rewatch it.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Okay.
But
it
Patrick
must be
Stewart
good
and Brent
content.
Spiner consistently give strong performances. That's Captain Picard, red shirt, bald
Right,
head,
yeah.
Yep.
Professor X.
No, I know who.
Okay.
I know who Picard is.
Cerebro.
Brent Spiner plays Data, the android with the white face.
Sure.
Like he's got.
Yeah,
Anyway, Matthew will probably drop in some stuff here that you can see later on. Oh, sorry, I wasn't supposed to mention your name.
I understand your concerns. Request denied.
But they do it. But John Delancey's this other actor who holds his own. And the interplay between John Delancey's character of Q, this omnipotent being, and Patrick Stewart's Picard literally starts from the pilot episode and goes right through the entire series, where he shows up in different circumstances, sometimes to cause trouble, other times, perhaps, almost as this angel who shows up to kind of be like, hey, just so you know, this really bad thing is coming and you need to be ready for it. And he does so in kind of a roundabout way, so you never actually thank him for it, but he shows up and he does this, and he is this godlike being, but who has a need to interact with things. And he clearly, by the end of the show, respects Picard, and Picard respects him. There's kind of this tense friendship, almost like Father Roger and when Father Harrison is here. There's this tense friendship between these two major powers kind of going back and forth against one another. I'm not sure which one's Q and which one's Picard. You guys can decide that amongst yourselves.
Just kidding. Please don't fight. We're talking about virtue. Okay.